Hey, Eveline, thank you for coming in. You have a remarkable background. Wow, graduated summa cum laude. That's excellent, and you're going on to your master's, so that's just amazing. And you've got this remarkable background, well, for example, in internships and so on. So we'll mine any of the. We'll get into all of that. We'll get into some of the inflection points in your life and what you hope to achieve in your future and some of your current and future activities, and we'll get your points of view about the nature of the world. So that's all coming. So thank you again for coming in and sharing your insights, because you're just an outstanding person.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So, my audience typically consists of CEOs, are typically number one, followed by investors, and I even get sovereign funds watching this, and then professors and engineers and some students. But interestingly enough, typically it's CEOs are number one, or founders of companies. So, and everyone is interested. Every time I do an interview with outstanding individuals like yourself, they're interested in, what were the inflection points in your life? Maybe when you were 3 or 4, it could be when you were in early school, it could be something that happened before you went to university and so on, or events you attended. What are the two sort of dramatic events that shaped you into this wonderful person you are today?
I think one of the biggest moments is when I decided I wanted to go abroad for college. Like I want to go study in America, or actually, like I didn't even know if I wanted to go to England or America, but at one point in my life, I think I was 15 or 16, I was like, I want to get out, I want to improve my English, I want to see the world. As a kid, I've always been traveling with my parents, like I've seen so many cultures, and that was one of the main reasons why I was like, I want to go somewhere else. Because I am originally from the Netherlands, from Amsterdam. And then when I was 16, 17, I was like, I really want to go to America. I love New York City. I want to go there. And then I found a really good college here, Pace University. I played field hockey here. Just finished with my bachelor in finance, currently doing my master's in strategy and international business. But yeah, I think that was one of the turning points, because obviously moving out is one thing, but moving across the world is a whole new thing. But yeah, I'm really happy with the decision that I made.
So what I'm hearing is that an inflection point for you was just your interest in the international landscape and getting embedded internationally. And I guess that would then give you a much better view of inclusivity and diversity. And when you're working internationally or studying internationally, it'll challenge you as well, because you meet people from different backgrounds. As you mentioned, you're from the Netherlands, but it'll force you to engage with people from diverse backgrounds, and in that way, it'll expand your horizon. So that's been really a transformational part of your life. So what triggered your interest in doing things internationally? Was it somebody in your family, or is it because the way the mindset is in the Netherlands? Something must have triggered your interest in doing things internationally.
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons was traveling, seeing so many cultures, and being like, the more I saw, the more I wanted to see. So like being in Asia or being in America or somewhere in Africa, I was like, there are so many places that are so different from us. Like they're working differently, they're different language, the way they communicate, everything is different. And I wanted to learn more about that. And also my parents have both studied abroad, worked abroad, and just the way they're talking about it, you learn so much from knowing and working with other people, like other cultures. Like it just helps yourself in the future. So that, yeah, I think that was one of the main reasons why. And also, like I mentioned before, like I really wanted to improve my English, and then America or England was one of the places where that could be very helpful to do that.
It sounds like you were given the resources and the opportunity
Yeah.
to work internationally. So that probably came from your family. And
Mhm.
you indicated both your parents do work internationally. In fact, your dad's quite famous. I don't know your mother, but I do know your dad, and he's actually very famous. and he works internationally, and he's famous for all of the community building and innovation that he works internationally. So that would be a big part. But you also said your mother does international work. What kind of work does she do?
She's a corporate lawyer right now, but she has studied abroad in like Paris, and she's worked in Belgium. So like just having different cultures, like that was always a part growing up, like how important it is and how like this world right now, especially with the new technologies coming out, it's even if you work locally, you're gonna have to meet or work with other people from different countries that speak different languages. So it's always been like a big thing at home, like how important it is to meet new people and to learn other things and different languages as well.
So you were a student at Pace University. In fact, you graduated summa cum laude with honors at Pace with a bachelor's in finance and a concentration in economics, which are difficult areas of study.
Yeah.
And so what made you, because your dad is an engineer, right? Your mother's a lawyer, and you decided to get a degree in finance. So that's different from your parents. Why different from your parents?
Um, I wanted something new, but like I love hearing their stories about what they're doing, but I wanted to have something on my own. And then business, like I was like looking online, like what are like good things for me. And then business was something that like just interested me. Especially since I didn't have a thing. It wasn't like, oh, I want to go to nursing school or I want to become a doctor or I want to become a lawyer. I had interest in so many areas that I didn't want to like have one specific thing yet. And then business, like there's business everywhere. You can work at a hospital in business. You can work at any other company, and there need to be someone that works in business. So that's something why I was like, oh, business is very interesting for me. But then again, like I do like the little details. So that's why I was like, finance is a little bit more focused than let's say general marketing or business. So that's how I kind of made like a final countdown. I was like, business just like or finance was just a really good education here at Pace University. And then like following the different courses, you have to have some mandatory economic classes. I love those. Like I thought it was so interesting. And when one of my professors was like, you can have extra minors in economics. I was like, I need to do that. So I'm actually taking another economics class this semester, environmental economics, and I'm really excited for that class.
It's interesting. You talked about you want to study business, but you can get a degree in business and marketing and commerce and so on. But you decided finance and a concentration in economics. That would actually be more difficult because there's much more math.
Yeah,
And also,
I always liked math a lot. Like in high school, like at first, I think I even applied as a math major, but then I don't know. I thought like I need to have the background. Like math is just too focused on only the numbers. Like finance, and you get like the. I always say like to other people, like with math, you get the numbers. With finance, you use the numbers to create like a story or explain a story, like what's going on in the world.
so what I'm hearing is you were good at math, you loved math, but maybe it's just a little bit theoretical. You wanted to apply
Yeah,
something, right? And
yeah,
finance and
exactly.
economics, you do apply it. And you apply it in a way where you can actually transform the world in a immediate sense. So by getting a degree in finance with a concentration in economics, and some people don't realize that summa cum laude is like the very, very top. So people think of magna cum laude, but summa is even higher than magna cum laude. And Pace is a really good school, so that would be very competitive. So how did you do that? Naturally, you must be smart, but it takes hard work too, because there's a lot of good students there.
Yeah, no, definitely. There are so many good students, which actually helps me a lot. Like that comes like with the competitive side of me. Like I want to be as good or even better than other people. And so it like they actually help me and lift me up, having so many good students around me. But also the people around here are very helpful. Professors are really good. I'm on a field hockey team, so I get a lot of help with like study hall hours. Like we need to have such good time management and it's so busy. Like it's actually better for me that my schedule is so busy, so I'm so focused on the work that I'm doing. And yeah, I just want to prove to myself and to others that like I want to do the best that I can, and then when it ends up working, that's just very like I'm happy with my results.
Yeah, and by graduating with a summa cum laude and with honors at Pace and in finance and economics, which is one of the more difficult programs, a lot of math, then you could have really got your graduate degrees from any school, and
Yeah.
then pretty well any topic too, because you summa cum laude. So it didn't matter where you went into, they would admit you. And then, so you decided to continue with Masters in Strategy and International Business. Why Strategy and International Business?
Well, I'm still studying here at Pace. They have like really good combined degree programs. So I'm actually doing a 5-year program where you get like both your bachelor and master's. So obviously I finished with the bachelor in finance already, and that's why I'm already currently doing classes in the master program. And they had a few options, including corporate finance, just general business, again, marketing, but then international business and strategy. The strategy part I really like because it's a lot of Excel and math, like I mentioned before, I like that a lot. But the international business is so broad. We learn about different cultures, how do people do business in different markets, but also how do these markets do business with each other. So that's why international business, it was just like, I don't know, I'm like I mentioned before multiple times, I really like having to work with different cultures, different people, and then knowing and learning about how the markets are around the world. I thought that would be a really good degree.
And you also are athletically sort of have a predisposition. You're the captain of the university's field hockey team as well. So that would set you up if you wanted to, probably for a like one of these big scholarships, like at Cambridge or Oxford, or a Rhodes Scholarship. Because if you have a combination of athletics and scholarship, then you potentially could be a candidate for that. So what are your plans after you complete your master's then? You want to continue your education, or now do you want to get a job or work for an NGO like a UN agency or something like that? What's your focus after you complete your master's?
Right now I have another year of college, so I'm like obviously grateful to still be able to play another year of field hockey. We're currently in pre-season, prepping for season to start in August or end of August, and then finishing up the masters. I preferably would like start a job and like find like I want to figure out where my passion is. Like I know I like math, I know I like Excel, but I also like to like talk to people and like have like more the soft side of business. So I want to start somewhere. Like I honestly don't really know if that's gonna be in like a bank or a UN institution, since I talk to many people in Geneva that work for the UN, and I love all their stories. So I'm like really interested in learning more about that. But I kind of just want to focus right now on trying to find what is it that I actually am interested in. And obviously I know like it's not a set plan that if I go somewhere, that's where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. But I would like to figure out what is it that I'm actually good at and interested in.
Yeah, and I guess exploring the different avenues,
Yeah.
like you said, it could be in corporate America or corporations globally. It could be um, working with a UN agency or an NGO. I mean, your family is definitely embedded in those spaces because I know your family. So I guess there's a lot of options that you have. You also, when I look at your background, you did internships at Rockfleet Financial Services with this wealth management. So that opens up a lot of possibilities. And at Dell Technologies and in government affairs. So I mean, that's in a technology, and then working with governments. And you've been a volunteer at GMHC, where you provided free legal services to clients with immigration matters. I mean, all of these things are interesting. And of course, you volunteered for accountability in the digital age for the Peace Palace in The Hague. So there's a lot of different elements there. So you're picking up a lot of experiential kind of volunteer experiences, which one did you find the most rewarding? Or maybe you don't want to say that because they're all rewarding in some way.
No, yeah, obviously they're all rewarding, and I'm so grateful for like all the internships I've done and being able to volunteer or like participate at the AI or at the accountability in the digital age in The Hague, as you mentioned. But like volunteering with the legal GMAC, where I provide immigrants legal services, that's just very rewarding, since it's not a hard job for me, but they cannot do it, and they are always so grateful when I do something for them and it works out and they get, for example, their visa. Like, I don't know, helping those people and then getting a phone call from someone that barely speaks English and is like thanking me for half an hour for something I did for them. I don't know, that just sticks with me. But I'm very grateful for the internships, because that's like the internship with wealth management was very interesting to me, because I'm like, yeah, I actually do really like this. I'm glad I chose an education in finance, because I mean, internships are always good, I think, because even if you do not like it, that's good too, because then you know, okay, I did my job, but this is not where I want to be later. I feel like that's a good experience too, but I really liked it, so that was good. Since I was still like kind of early in my college years. And then the internship in at Dell Technologies was really, really interesting, learning more about how they operate around the world, and how like events like the war in Europe like affects those businesses, because I didn't even think about all of those, how that would affect their business in even Brazil. So that was very interesting for me. And then I lived in DC that summer, which was really nice, learning another new city here in America.
So you found value in all of the internships and volunteer work you've done, but I could tell from just the way you sort of lit up that legal services was something that really moved you and inspired you in your work. So, and we talked about, you know, what your future plans are, but you're still kind of determining that. And so let's kind of move away from your current situation, and then where you plan to be in the future, and get your viewpoints on the world, right? Because you worked internationally, you worked with all of these amazing different organizations, so you get a different viewpoint. And now you're in strategy and international business in your master's. So let's talk about the world. What are some of the challenges that you see that the world is facing from your viewpoint, and what do you think are some of the solutions? And maybe that's a road too far ahead, but
Yeah.
you know, maybe the top three challenges you see in the world from your viewpoint.
Well, something that in a lot of my classes we do case studies, and something that's always an issue that's coming up is people just, like I mentioned before, everyone works internationally, and especially with my master's in international business, one of the main focus or problems I see in those classes is that people don't understand each other. Like, they don't know other people's cultures, way of living, like how the nonverbal communication is. Like, if people from Asia do business with people from America, that's going to be different, and you have to know what those differences are in order to have even a good meeting or a conversation with people. And like, what's the verbal and nonverbal communication? Like, how do you implement those things? I feel like that's one of the main points, or at least for me in my classes, and what I've learned from people like studying with people from other countries as well. Like, and that's why I really like living in New York City, by the way. Like, so many people in my class are international students as well. I have a few friends from China, from Germany, obviously a few friends, or a lot of friends from America. And we don't always speak the same language as well, but we know each other. We know what our culture, like we know our cultural backgrounds, which makes it so much easier to work together. But you know that when you start a class or when you start a group, like in the beginning, it's kind of like, how we're gonna do this. But once you get to know each other, it's going so much better. So I feel like that's one of the things, if you ask like for a solution, people need to be more patient, and I feel like more willing to learn each other, to get to know each other in order to have a good business or work together, if that makes sense. And then I kind of forgot what else I was going to say, or what you asked me to.
Yeah, so you gave me sort of your viewpoint of one challenge in the world, and I'll just summarize it, what I heard, and then maybe we can think of two others. So, or one or two others. And you mentioned that in the world today, there's so many different viewpoints and people from different cultures and different geographies and different political situations and different histories, and people need to dialogue with each other to try to understand the other and their viewpoint. And by doing so, then you get into a common ground, areas where there's common understanding, but also respect for the other. And then that leads to that collaboration and working together. And you're seeing that when you, in your international program, and as you mentioned, you're in New York, which is very diverse. And by having exposure to people with different backgrounds and getting to know them and to listening to their point of view, then you're able to come into synchronicity with them and harmony with them so that you can work on things together. So you're advocating for more of an open dialogue, but a sharing and a dialogue for collaboration and not for opposition. And then that gets to this bigger idea of peace and having greater community and coming together as a community by understanding the other. And then from a science standpoint, it gets into this idea of EQ, emotional quotient, and theory of mind, understanding the other, and then dialoguing with the other. So that has ramifications for you in your studies and where you live and the work you've done internationally. And it's a global problem. It's a global issue, right? And to reduce conflict. Okay, so that's kind of one challenge that you talked about. Is there any others that you have a viewpoint on?
Now I'm kind of thinking about the place where I met you at the AI for Good Summit in Geneva, how artificial intelligence is just becoming a big, not even a problem, but like a bigger topic that we need to pay attention to. Like, how is the role, like some countries are moving very fast, or countries are still behind with AI for good or with artificial intelligence in general. And there are obviously a lot of benefits from it, but also risks. And I feel like that's one of the challenges in this new like developing world, if that's a good way to describe it, that we need to focus on more, and need to that topic needs to become bigger, I think.
Okay, so let me get your viewpoint then. So let me summarize what I'm hearing. You're saying that AI is a transformational technology. It's been around for a while, but something happened, and that is the release of these large foundation models. That's sort of the generic term for ChatGPT or Bard or a Cloud 2 or some of the other ones that you see out there now, which people are interacting with, and it got released into the wild, in essence, to everybody with the release of ChatGPT and GPT-4, but now Google has this thing called Bard and so on. So it's just proliferating. In fact, Tim Cook came out and said, hey, we're spending a lot of money in this area too. So looks like everybody is really focusing in this area, and it's proliferating. And so you're wondering, and you're asking the question, well, what impact will it have? We should be thinking about maybe what are some of the ethical issues associated with it, but also the opportunities that it can enable, and be more thoughtful on that area. So now let me extend what you're talking about. And then, do you think we're going to have something that's very human-like beyond what we have today, which is equivalent to what we are? And do you think it'll surpass us, but not 100 years from now? I'm talking in the next few years. Do you believe that that's going to happen?
I definitely think there are opportunities for AI to develop very fast and quickly within the next few years. I don't think, at least for the next few years, it will pass us humans, but I'm not saying it could never happen. Like, obviously, we don't know how much longer people are going to be working on this, but like looking at what we have already, we have a robot with a nationality. Like that's just something that I think 100 years no one could even imagine. And now we have it. So I'm not saying never. I don't think for the next, like, let's say 5 years it's gonna happen, but maybe in the future, yeah.
Now, you indicated that you were at AI for Good, and AI for Good is this summit that's hosted in Geneva by a UN agency called ITU. In fact, they're the founding United Nations host for this summit. And of course, AI for Good is now a meme globally. It's become really famous. And they have a robotics forum that's part of that. They had like top 50 robots, and CNN did interviews with those robots, for example, picked up at news media, and the reviews have been just through the roof. In other words, very, very good from this AI for Good summit. Since you were there, can you tell the audience why you were there, and then what were your favorite aspects of AI for Good?
I was there. My dad was a moderator and a speaker at the event, so I had the opportunity to come with him. So I was really lucky with that. And what I loved about the event is how everyone was so passionate about it and wanted everyone else to learn about the topic. Like I was in the lounge and everyone was just including me, even though I was like, I'm not specialized in this topic. They were like, we don't care, we just want you to learn more, so you're going to be the next generation to talk about this topic. And like it's so important, we need everyone else to know what we're discussing here right now. So I thought that was very interesting. Like right now we have a group and we're like have like a little WhatsApp group, and like we had a Zoom meeting where people just like share ideas and how can we like AI for Good with ethics and robots and how share ideas and all that stuff. So one of the main things is that, first of all, it was an amazing event, but the inclusion, how everyone, like, I felt like there was no competition. Like everyone wanted everyone else to be as good as possible so that we can create a whole new and better thing. Like, for example, when we were talking about the ethical part of AI, everyone was like explaining how it is working right now instead of like, I know it already. Like everyone was so interested in the topic that I don't know. I think I mentioned it already, but just everyone was like interested and helpful and glad to like be there, I guess.
Were there any pieces of information that you picked up that you thought were shocking for you when you attended, or were there ones that really kind of stuck in your mind as being, gee, that was really, really interesting?
Well, there were a few. I was very obviously seeing all those robots. I was like, whoa, this is not something you see in movies. This is like right here, right now. So seeing those robots, and especially the ones that have like a nationality, I'm like, no way. We both have like, let's say a passport, but also how they can be used. It's not just we can use it, we're trying to use them for good. Like someone is called AI for Good. So there were robots that were like therapy dogs or like helping people in like the elderly. Like how can we make sure that robots is not just here for fun? Like we know we can create them, but like helping in therapy, helping like the older people living alone, or if they're not living alone, how can we make their lives better? So that was something that I was just like, wow, we can actually do this. Like some little robot can help in therapy. And I hope that in the near future, it can be used for like many people, and that's not going to be too expensive thing to make.
So that's really interesting. So you indicated that you sat and you were integrated into some of the leadership forums that were there, and which your father was moderating, and your father is quite famous for being one of the catalysts for AI for Good with ITU. He's one of the early people that came in and to support them and to grow them and so on. So and his name is Fritz Bussemaker. So he's quite a noted person. And then you were able to sit and engage with his sessions, and which the ethical side would be discussed. That was one of the sessions that he was moderating, and the impact it's going to have. But then throughout the event, you indicate there's robots. So you thought the therapy robots are really interesting. The humanoid robots that could actually talk. They talked and could engage, and they had nationalities, and you could have conversations with them. So you thought that was really interesting. Did anything about the event scare you at all? Not that the event was scary. There was nothing in the event scary, but the implications of what you saw maybe could be scary.
That's actually a funny question, because I heard people at the event saying how like it might be scary that we're moving so fast, but I honestly felt like it was just a place where people try to make the world better. Like I did not have a feeling like, oh, we're creating stuff that's gonna like pass us and then we're gonna have no control anymore. That, or at least that's not how I felt, especially when we talked about the ethics, and I thought that was so interesting. Like after hearing that and listening to that session, I was like, no, it's gonna be okay. Like it's still a topic that needs to be discussed and it needs to be figured out, but at least we're talking about it. It's not like we're out of control and we're just making stuff without thinking what the impact on the world is.
I guess that then fits into your philosophy of internationalism, and when you have diversity and people from different geographies and culture, to take the time to listen to others and to hear what people are saying. So, and by doing so, then you create stability and you bring peace to chaos rather than sort of continuing polarization and so on. So I could see this interweaving of the things that interest you, and then your background, and then how those things that were happening in AI for good, which you would find compelling for you. Are there other events around the world that you're interested in attending that you think are interesting, and maybe something, because you're young, and then from your sort of youth point of view, maybe the World Economic Forum or some other forum that's out there where people come together. Are there other ones that would be interesting for you to attend or have attended?
Yeah, I have attended a few forums by the UN, the Global Women Forum, the UN Global Women Forum, I think that's what it's called. I thought that was very interesting. It wasn't like focused on one specific area like technology or AI or anything, but it was just about how right now this world is getting so much better with diversity, like men, women, and how like I did my thesis on diversity rights, for example, in the European Union. So that's one of the forums I really enjoy listening to and participating.
I see. So the Global Women Forum was not just focused on technology, but a variety of different areas having to do with diversity and inclusion. And you did a thesis in this area too. So there's a lot of alignment about women and bringing more women, I guess, into the conversation, right? And to leadership roles. And then that would tie in with your interests and because you're a woman so, as well, right? So, but it sounds like you were inspired by the direction of that forum.
Yeah, I definitely think it wasn't about men, women, it was more about diversity in general. And like you mentioned, and how I said before, that can create benefits for a company or the world in general if you have a more diverse team, and that includes having more women as well. So that was one of the reasons. Like I listened to that forum and I was like, oh, this is something that really interested me, and that's how I kind of got to go in that topic for my thesis.
Was there any other forum or event that you attended that you thought was really interesting to you? So I can see why the Women's Forum would interest you, because it's about the broader area of just diversity, period, right, and inclusion. So, but which includes women. Were anything else that you can think of?
Yeah, there was one that was last summer in Washington DC. It was more like a debate forum, but it was about sustainability. and the environment, and how business need to, like, how by doing good in business they can help both the environment and their like, how you say that, sharing stakeholders, like by only they called it, instead of cutting the pie, they're growing the pie. Like if you do well, it's going to benefit you as well. So that was in DC forum. We talked about sustainability in business, so I thought that was very interesting as well. And yeah.
So what I'm hearing is this idea of sustainability is be mindful when you run business, so that you will provide benefit to multitude of stakeholders. And in fact, kind of that's the concept of return on value, not just return on investment. So it's not just pure financial, but returning value to multiple stakeholders, which includes then thinking about the environment and the impact you're having on the world, and ensuring that you're making a positive contribution rather than sort of detracting from the world from a sustainable business standpoint. So I could see why that would interest you, right? Because you're inheriting the world and you want to make sure there's something to inherit, right? So anything else? Because you thought of this, right? In our dialogue, you said, well, there was one last year, and that's a sustainable business. And you thought that was interesting. Now, so I got to keep on this track until you run out of interesting forms.
I guess those two were the main. If you ask me right now what two forums has had an impact on you, I think those, like the women and diversity, and then the sustainability forums.
Yeah, and then sustainability, as you mentioned, impacts the environment, which gets into climate and all of the other challenges that people want to address, or at least some people want to address anyways, right? So you mentioned you traveling internationally, and it's helped with your ability to communicate, which your English, by the way, is actually better than your dad's, I think. So and so how many languages do you speak?
I had quite a few in high school. We had, like, I think 7. But right now I'm like fluent in English and Dutch, and then like the basics from German and French. And then we had Latin and Greek and Mandarin. But don't ask me to have a good conversation in Mandarin right now.
Yeah, Mandarin's pretty
like,
tough, right?
right?
Mandarin's pretty tough because it's all sort of
Oh yeah, it was very tough, but I really enjoyed even like learning a little bit about the language, and especially like Latin. Like we don't speak it, but being able to read it, and then going to Rome and being like, oh my God, I know all the history and I can read it. When you go to all those famous places, like I loved Latin in high school. That was one of my favorite subjects as well.
It's interesting that you studied 7 languages, some of which you're quite fluent, but at least you have some base in these 7 languages, of which Latin, Greek you mentioned. And what that would do, though, was give you a base for all the words that are out there. A lot of the words that are based on Latin, right? So it'll give you a base in understanding medical terms, scientific terms, things like that, or the sort of the history of different words in different languages.
Sometimes during high school, it's like, why am I learning all of these at the same time? But then when you're studying for one subject, you come, like during French, it's like, oh, I know some of these words because I've had those in Latin. And when you start learning for your history test, I'm like, oh, but I had this during I don't know, Greek. Like that's just like, it was also beneficial. It wasn't just learning the language itself, but learning their history and backgrounds as well.
And then that would help you with Italian and Spanish. I didn't hear those 2 languages, but if you ever decided to pick them up, it'd be easier because of the base.
Yeah, and it was just like, even though obviously it's been a while since I've spoken some of those languages, but like being able, like knowing how to learn a language, like it will make it so much easier to, like, let's say I want to start studying Spanish, like I know how to start. Like I have some basics, obviously, but I know from being, like, having done that for like 7 years, or I mean, I'm 22 right now, and I've obviously learned languages, but like just having a good basic, it was very helpful. And even with here coming, oh my God, I need to like speak English right now, and there's no one else spoke Dutch here. Like I had to, and like yeah, like learning those other languages too was very helpful for me.
So we've explored different parts of your life and your background, your views on the world, and the things you found interesting and are inspiring you for the future. So we're down to our last question. And that question is, what recommendations do you want to give to the audience?
I don't want to say get out, but like learn new cultures, like go to a place you've never been before, even if it's like within your own country, like, or talk to someone that has a different background than you, and like sit down with them for an hour and listen to their stories. Like you'll learn so much without even realizing it. Like everyone is different, and knowing, like even like accepting that will make a big difference for your future, I guess. So just try to explore new things, new cultures, new languages, new places. And it's also really fun traveling. Like I've seen so many beautiful things, and I'm very happy I have been doing that.
So you're telling the audience to, or you're suggesting to the audience that you found a lot of value in speaking to people who have different backgrounds, come from different cultures, and you can learn a lot, and it also gives you a different perspective, and you grow from that. And traveling is part of that. But like you said, it doesn't have to be. You could just in your city talk to people who come from different backgrounds. Like you live in New York now because of Pace University. So you're saying it's such a diverse community out there, and talking to people with different backgrounds gives you a whole different viewpoint, even without traveling, right? So that's interesting and important takeaways for people to expand their horizons. Eveline, thank you for coming in and sharing your experiences, your viewpoints, and so on with our audience.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. It was great talking to you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.